This is another message from the underground. The voice of Free Earth, brought to you by Seils, straight from the source. You are here now with a special purpose to fulfill. And you are not alone. This is it, family. It's up to us. One planet, one spiritual source, in a multitude of forms. Stay human, protect the planet, raise the consciousness.
Hi guys, Paul Seils here. Thank you for rejoining us for this very special presentation and interview with Michael Proper from ClearUnited Mobiles. Hi Michael, how are you going?
I'm good.
We live in a world where one value is prized above all others. Freedom. Freedom to speak. Freedom to move. To be who we are and determine our own way. For us and for our families. Technology has changed our lives, mostly for the better. We can talk. We can truly connect, know where our kids are. We can do almost anything. Technology gives us unlimited freedom, but the big print giveth, and the small print taketh away. Whether you know it or not, our search for convenience has led us to give up certain freedoms. Freedoms like ownership, privacy, permission. Why are we okay with that? Maybe you're not. That's where Clear comes in. We've made the first and only phone that runs on a completely private network. We want to help you take back what's being lost. Your moments, your memories, your children. Think about it. Your family deserves better. A phone and network that does everything you want, but nothing you don't. A phone that blocks ads and hackers, even adult content. Content no one should see. And anything else you don't want your kids to see. It gives you control. And isn't that the ultimate freedom? The future is clear.
Life is good. It's good and then some.
That's great. That's great. It's super excited to have you with us. We've got community with us as well at the moment. So can you give us a little bit of background and context? I've read your LinkedIn profile. Can you give us a little bit of background about how you got to this point in time? What's your context?
Context as far as how I got to this part of life, or maybe in the work world. I'll give you context all over the place, and I'll just try to simplify it. So in life, father of 6, married for like 24 years. But as far as work goes, at a young age of 16, said a simple prayer, to be honest with you. And I was at a point in my life where I was just wanting to know what I should do and where I should go, and just really struggling. So I grew up in foster homes from age 9 to 16, and I was emancipated from the state of California at 16 and hitchhiked from LA to Utah and was doing crazy work, hard work. And I just said a simple prayer. And through 2 or 3 different prayers, it basically was evident that the answer was technology. And I didn't even know what the word meant. So I reached out to a gentleman and my foster father, and I said, I know what I'm supposed to do, but I don't know what it is. And I told him it was technology, and he didn't know what it was either. This was in 1992. So make a long story short, my whole adult life, I've known that technology is what we're supposed to do, but I didn't really know what it was. But I've primarily focused my majority of my adult life on really security and architecture systems for technology, whether that's file, print, messaging. But your audience doesn't want to hear about all this. But basically, make a long story short, I built a bunch of businesses. One for 5 years, grew that over 10 million in revenue, and 12 people. It's still in business. That was from 1995 to 2000 or 99. And then in 2000, I started another business called Direct Point that basically combined hardware, software, and services for predictable monthly fee. But it was for printers, it was for PCs and servers. And we grew that to a whole new industry. It's a $256 billion industry. We had customers in all 50 states, 29 countries. And we actually did some crazy stuff down there in Australia in 2007, 2008. And make a long story short, started Clear, we actually sold a division of that to Hewlett Packard, the print division, in 2009, 2008. And we spun out the consumer division, which has about 750 people here in Utah County, where we're currently located. But bottom line is, what we're doing with Clear is all about the phone, but leveraging all of the history from security and IT from prior life, and as it related to combining hardware, software services for predictable monthly fee for PCs, printers, servers, all that stuff. But now we're doing it for the phone. And ultimately, the phone does much, much more for mankind than we were doing with DirectPoint, primarily because in 2009, an employee of DirectPoint that we actually had hired away from Dell, moved him from Texas to Utah. He introduced me to Bitcoin after he made a bunch of money with us in sales, and he put $50,000 into Bitcoin in 2009. I think today's value, he's probably around $6.5 billion in Bitcoin assets. But a wonderful man. But he introduced me to this new architecture where really what blockchain is really an application that sits on multiple servers, and it acts as one big database that the world calls a ledger. And ultimately, we started building decentralized systems for distributed architectures while everyone was running the centralized systems. So Amazon, Azure, Google Compute, these are all centralized systems where we're building like little servers like that.
Yes.
We're actually building software, which called ClearOS Server, for the masses to basically go on x86-based servers. It'll even go on ARM-based servers, which are kind of like this, right? So this is an example of a server that can go into your home, manage everything in your home, file, print, messaging, as well as all of your IP connected devices, cameras, fridges, TVs, etc. And then you can plug storage into that. So we built ClearOS Server that runs the back end in the home while the rest of the world is building these centralized systems. And then the gorgeous thing is that back end at home, so imagine storage connects to these devices to run the future ecosystem on decentralized systems, if that makes any kind of sense.
Absolutely. You got a background in, spent a bit of time in blockchain with the blockchain community, some very amazing things happening in that space, and doing everything that we can from an indirect sort of activist view about supporting decentralization. Decentralization means basically the community owns the project. It's not a top-down structure. So super excited about this, the opportunity, what it makes available, I guess, and particularly what's happened with the recent censorship. People are aware the information that I've been talking about publicly for the last 8 years about what Edward Snowden and the NSA and Julian Assange have been exposing about the NSA, our surveillance of all our data, text messages, phone calls, emails, internet browsing, GPS tracking location. So it's very timely. It's super exciting that you guys are about to catch this wave, and there's a lot of people in our community super excited about this.
What's interesting is, even before Assange and before Snowden, we knew that there was lack of transparency and lack of honesty and forms of corruption that were in the ecosystem. And we had made the choice to literally start this way before then. It's definitely grown and morphed, but when we saw what Snowden did, we had already moved. I moved my personal family of 8 down to New Zealand because the US was the wrong place to actually start something like this.
Yes.
New Zealand is a very good place when it comes to accountability to the people, when it comes to lack of corruption, when it comes to intellectual property rights. But patents don't have any kind of jurisdiction there. So there's no software patents, but copyrights are very, very solid and very real, which creates an ecosystem for open source technologies, which is the only way to be able to build a system like this, is leveraging open source technologies, which is really like living the law of consecration in software development. So nobody owns it, nobody controls it, but everybody benefits and shares from it. Yes. And so when you look at that, and what I'll do is I'll try and pull up, try and grab a page for you real fast. Can you guys share my screen or see my screen by chance?
Yeah, I can see it. So strategy.
Yeah, but there's something else I want to show you. Right? It's not public yet, but these guys, They'll love to, at least maybe we'll see.
Well, just while you're looking for that, as well, Michael, I'll just ask you the question as well, because fundamentally this is a matter of trust. It's a trust issue, and but there's a level of cynicism, justifiable cynicism in the market that's about, what is this about? People are questioning other platforms like Signal, whether they're corrupted. Is this like another honeypot project that like draws people in to like capture their data, and then it's like, ClearUnited sells off to whoever for the highest bidder at some point in time in the future.
Yeah, what's interesting and different about this, we're not in it for the money. As a matter of fact, we're the ones writing the checks to do it all, but we're not doing it as shareholders or venture perspective. We're doing it for mankind. I don't know. I was 35 when I bought my first $4 or $5 million house. And I can tell you that money actually does things that are wrong in many respects, but they enable other elements. But I can promise you that from the top down in the culture here, this is not built to be sold. This is not built for a lifestyle. This is built because mankind needs choice. We don't need privacy, but we must have choice.
Yes.
And now let me put a statement on that. Privacy is massively important, but there's certain countries, for instance, in China, I was there, right before, anyways, it doesn't matter. But the bottom line is different countries have different laws and different things that are normal. And even if they may not have privacy in China, the ability for them to choose and the ability for them to have transparency, like think about it. As an Australian, could you live in a China environment? It would be difficult, right?
Yes.
But what if you lived in a China environment where you knew that the government was spying on you, but at least they were honest about it, and at least you knew that when they were spying on you, what they looked at and where they went. If they looked at your bank accounts, if they looked at your assets, if they looked at your web search history, if they looked at different things that you own. And that's one of the things I loved about New Zealand. New Zealand is a country that spies on their citizens, but they're honest about it.
Yeah.
In China, it's just the opposite. So I guess my point is the real importance of what Clear is about is truth, transparency, honesty. And some of the things that mankind has touched on as we've kind of grown and advanced over the years, we're missing elements of truth that are naturally around us. For instance, why is it that the earth turns? And I know we're having a technology conversation, but I'm sitting here asking you, why is it that the earth turns? And do we ever stop to think about we're just floating around on this rock in the universe? And are we floating around the sun, or is the sun floating around something else? And all I'm driving at are physics, basic things of truth and how we're here. And ultimately, this universe operates on the same principles that Clear operates on, which is decentralization. Our bodies operate on them. The cells, the little information highways inside of our bodies, the veins and the arteries and lymphatic systems and all these, they operate on these same types of truths. But are we, as mankind, even tapped into any of this health-based truth or even global-based truth or universe-based truth? I'm not talking religion.
Yeah.
What I'm talking about is mankind actually being connected to simple elements of truth to better our lives. And because of secret combinations, because of governments, because of corruption, because of money, which again is my point on what we're not driven on, you see a lot of these different lies. I'd say insurance is a form of a lie. I would say pharmaceuticals are a form of a lie. Don't get me wrong, they definitely have their place.
You're right. Even debt-based fractional reserve banking systems are a lie.
Yeah. So when you look at decentralized currencies, that's a form of a system that could tie to some of the similar truths of like the Jubilee versus debt-based financing, or fractional-based system. Or I put $1 in a bank and now I can loan out 10. What is that?
Yes. Or up to 21 in some instances.
Yeah, well, they're just going to inflate the whole system. But ultimately, and that's one of the reasons why you're seeing Bitcoin go where it's at, even though it's so expensive to use Bitcoin, and Bitcoin from a transactional standpoint, there's no real, can you guarantee that within 3 seconds, you're actually going to have a transaction that consummates and you're done in full settlement? Everybody's gotten paid?
No.
With us in our world, that's a full reality. And it costs like 1,000th of a cent to do it. So I guess my point is when we back up and look at it, there are systems that mankind needs that are driven from software and technology that if we intelligently organize it a certain way and get it to mankind. So if we just take storage and communication systems, which really, this isn't just a phone. This does so much more than a phone. As a matter of fact, I would say the use case for a phone is probably maybe 10% of what these things do now, right? But the combination of decentralized ID with a device like this, we call it, some people are calling it a brilliant phone, some people, but you basically have a device with decentralized ID that connects to decentralized storage. And now when you can start people authenticating on these different systems worldwide, you end up with a whole new paradigm of computing. And let me answer another question that you were touching on, but you didn't say it. Now I'm going to say it for you. What makes you guys think you can even pull something like this off? Right?
It's ballsy. That's the question.
Yeah, well, if you only saw the whole thing, but what makes you guys think you can even do this? Right? You got everything against you.
Yeah.
In many ways. But I would also argue that if you take time out of the equation, money out of the equation, why can't mankind do it? And then the question is, well, what makes us so special that people at Clear think they can do it? And the answer is it's not the people at Clear that will do this. It is the world that will unite and come together that will do this. All we're doing is the same thing that people in this same county, Utah County in little old Utah, actually created years ago. File, print, messaging, IP, IPX, TCP/IP, which was copied by Microsoft. I mean, and when you say copied, it's like, okay, well, that's how the world benefits. That's how we grow. It's how we learn. The world would say, no, it's got to be stifled. You got to put a patent behind it. You got to put it in the shelf and make money on it. That's all about money. And if you really understand what I just said, one, the technology that mankind uses today to communicate, to even have this call, to even store this call, to even send those technologies, the protocols, the operating systems that were developed right here. And then they were taken and fragmented by others, and like Microsoft. Microsoft launched NT off of NetWare from Novell. Novell was, I mean, my point is it's not about money anymore.
Yeah.
It's about mankind, womankind using technology for the betterment of not just communications and privacy and choice, which is just a benefit today, but imagine a future a future that's full of, you actually not only have your own data, but you and your generations, 10 generations from now, can benefit of who you were and how you lived and what you ate and what worked and what didn't work and where you went and what didn't work, what time of day you worked out, what did you work out, there's so much that we haven't even tapped into as mankind for knowledge. But we got to stop all of the centralized systems. In Australia, you guys have a centralized health system. In New Zealand, they have a centralized health system. In the United States of America, we have 50 centralized health systems. Literally 50. Every state has its own health information exchange. It just so happens the prior business that we built managed 100% of every healthcare transaction. We also managed a lot of big pharmaceutical companies' IT. So imagine that. We were in the technology industry and managing the healthcare industry, only to see the dysfunction in the healthcare industry. But using technology to organize man in the middle, instead of man being a byproduct that's just a patient that goes to a provider that then gets paid by an insurance company that's slumming pharmaceutical chemicals. I shouldn't say it that way, but this is the reality. It's real. And so really we're working on not just the cell phone.
Yeah. It's wonderful, Michael. I was just going to say,
I'll stop blabbing. So go ahead and go to your next question.
No, I was just going to say it's a dual-edged sword. It ultimately, and I've read books by people like Patrick Wood about technocracy rising. It's a dual-edged sword technology. It has the ability to free us, or it has the ability to entrap us, depending on what we're spending our money on and what we're conscious of or unconscious of.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that's what you're saying here, and that's super exciting about this. It has the ability. We've got the ability foundationally at the moment. And like you say, it'll be beyond even maybe perhaps our lifetime, what we choose to be a part of, what we choose to embrace, what we choose to use, where we spend our money. and supporting those decentralized systems and communities.
Well, think about it this way. Bitcoin now has a pretty large market cap and people are starting to pay attention to it, but it took about 11 years to get here. But were you able to get involved in Bitcoin? Most people on this call, they didn't touch it until maybe recently.
Sure.
But Bitcoin was deployed in a very unique way. They call it proof of work. And they would basically have a machine, let's just call it a machine like this, that would plug in and it would use power. So people had to pay for a power bill, pay money, cash, whatever currency they were in, for a power bill to come up with an algorithm. So they had to get specific machines that would come up with an algorithm that would then be able to come up with a hash rate or to unlock another block. Now that really didn't do anything to help from a value to create security or other elements. What it did was it made the transaction possible, but that power that was consumed didn't provide value to mankind. Every man and woman on this call has bumped into the time with their cell phone where they've ran out of space. You're out of space. And there's an emotional thing in our mind. It's like, oh, this phone is now no longer good enough for me. I need to go get another phone, or I need to delete my memories or my history or my videos or whatever.
Or pay for cloud storage.
Yeah, that's another word. They call it cloud for centralized systems. But the point that I'm driving at is literally imagine, if you will, that instead of paying a power bill, you pay a cell phone bill that's connected to infrastructure that just gives you your identity back. So we're basically doing the same thing that Bitcoin did, but we're doing it with Clear. And we're doing it, instead of paying a power bill, you're paying your cell phone and communications bill. And instead of connecting to an asynchronous miner that provided no value to mankind, we're connected to storage-based systems like these that can go in your home, that can go in your business, that can go in data centers, but the more decentralized you get, the better. And in the Bitcoin world, a lot of the mining is actually centralized. A lot of governments are actually building. China's doing a ton. Russia's doing a ton, etc. The Bitcoin, I call it a litmus test because the cryptography behind Bitcoin is real, solid. Nobody's compromised it.
Yes.
Right? And so there's a ton of proof points around that would work, but it's very expensive to transact. Like if I wanted to send you $10 right now, it would cost me about 7 cents US dollars. If I wanted to send you 10 million, it would cost me about the same. But 7 cents is still 7 cents. Granted, it's not what American Express or Visa or MasterCard charge at 3%, right? But imagine if I could send you $10 or $10,000 or $10 million, and it would settle not within 10, 20, 30 minutes, but it would settle within 3 seconds, and it would cost literally a thousandth of 1 cent US.
Yes.
Now we're talking about not just the Bitcoin savings world, but we're talking about a new world with a digital transaction that actually can provide value to mankind. Now, I'd go back to one of your original questions. Are we doing this for money? No. As a matter of fact, when people actually pay that cell phone bill, we give away 40% of every dollar that comes in. And then we go and buy the cell phone networks, and we buy the cell phones, and we actually enable a lot of the operations and support and the actual platform to tie to the storage that then ties to health. So we're linking health and technology together and then giving it back to mankind. That model's crazy, but if we can actually do it and transact in real time, which today we're not doing that, but we hope by the end of the month we will be.
Yeah.
And the reality is, and imagine if you basically do it and you work within the existing systems that are out there. So you get a wallet, right? And you actually get a card. This card can then transact in the way that people are used to doing it. Yes. Or you can stay on the digital world, so the crypto world, the world that people are currently starting to learn about. You can stay in that ecosystem, or you can jump off. So I guess my point is we're giving this ecosystem back to the people that drive the awareness for it, not to the advertisers, the Googles, the Facebooks, the news channels, the fake news, or positive news. I don't even want to argue fake or real news because you just are awake, you can see it. But it's the people like you, literally, It's people that are on this call, literally, that will tell their friends, that will tell their family, hey, there's a different way. We can still communicate the same way we do. We can still pick up a phone or, in my opinion, the Clear phone all day long will compete with the best Apple phone and the best Google phone in the world, but it gives you your privacy back. And when you start getting your privacy back, it's not just a matter of, I can actually communicate and go private. No, it's you can do so much more now. You can transact differently. You can communicate differently. You can make memories differently. You can share things differently. You can pull it back. And what I would argue that's one of the most important things is for the generations in front of us, not just the next generation, but many generations can look back as we collect data and these keys. So when you actually get a phone, you basically write down your keys. These keys can actually go and move. And it's not just physical. There's intelligent ways. Like if I wanted to share my keys with everybody on this call, I could do it.
Yeah.
And then I could actually if I got on a call or I sent a message, I could actually request that you guys send me my key back and validate who I am. Imagine that. Did you just really understand what I said? So literally, I can be me and own my data, but who I am digitally and physically now mold together. The digital life, the physical life become one. And people like the people on this call can validate who I am, both physically and digitally. And that can actually rebuild my keys. Is that crazy? Think about it. And if you really understand, and I don't know how you're recording this or what you're doing, but if I were to share a screen, I could. What I've got up here is a ClearPay wallet. Imagine a little button down at the bottom that actually builds not only value and assets and wealth and currency and commodities and equities inside of, what the world would call a digital wallet, but you can actually have your reputation. Imagine a future where you're actually building your reputation based upon what you do digitally. And so now, instead of people snarkily leaving comments or doing things in the dark, where you know what the number one usage of the internet is today?
I would just be guessing, Michael.
Guess. Come on, give me a guess. Or anybody on the call, give me a guess. Number one usage.
Well, at some point it used to be porn.
It still is. So porn is the number one usage of the internet. Do you know what number two is?
I have no idea.
You guys shake your head if you disagree or don't. So it's either going to be I agree or I don't. Number one usage, porn. Number two usage, genealogy work. Trying to find family members, trying to find people, trying to look up old, high school friends. And that's, I don't know about you, but that's one of the reasons I love Facebook. I can connect with people that are just like, where did you go? It's been 30 years. I haven't seen you. So, and then you can be a part of their lives, So I guess my point is the number one usage of the internet is porn. I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong.
Mm-hmm. It's just what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. And, I really think that it's actually, intimacy is a beautiful God-given gift. But when it's perverted and shifted and turned into this money industry, what the biggest, it's not, drug trade is not the biggest crime anymore. It's human sex trade.
Mm-hmm. And human trafficking.
Yeah, and you talk about some real dark stuff, and you talk about honesty, and you talk about transparency. You take a natural, and I'm just going to throw out God. People can believe whatever they want. The God-given gift of male and female to connect and procreate. You take that natural intimacy and you literally throw it out there and pervert it, and then you put technology on it, and it's no wonder we're at where we're at. And I would even argue there's no wonder why Apple builds the quality screens and devices and cameras and other things that they do. But it's not about that. It's about putting the individual back in the middle of it with all of these systems and tools removed, and you literally let the people monetize the people. Yeah. Because everyone has a price and a value, but the individuals are actually the product and not getting any of that value. But they're in the middle of it, the tables all change. So let's go back to your concerns. Your concerns were,
well,
go ahead.
And I wanted to move into shortly just move into the conversation about the functions of the phone and also, the business opportunities for people to generate revenue. But if we can just clear up the cynicism that's in the market in relation to security and trust. talking about, military grade technology that has quantum computing. Denby's asked a question there as well. Is it, how is it possible to have a safe system that's encrypted and not be able to be accessed at some point through well-established military intelligence that we know exists, that's that have the ability to be able to hack that system at some point in time? What's your position in relation to that when people sort of ask you that question about the security, furthering the security issues, and really, how safe is the encryption? Like, encryption's a generalized term, but on the spectrum, like, as far as how encrypted is encrypted.
I'm going to share my screen.
Great.
So I just moved from a PC over to this. So answering your question directly, we will let the world hack at the encryption. It will be 100% open, 100% transparent. And that's why a majority of all systems in the world run Linux, or a combination of Linux systems for operating systems. The space station, stock exchanges, banks, Facebook, Google, you name it, they run Linux-based systems at their core. Why? Because people provide the code and people can thumb through it and it's transparent. So I guess what I'm driving at is you literally have a company that is willing to give away what they do to compete with the biggest and the best, Apple, Facebook, Google / Alphabet, IBM, Microsoft, all at the same time, to build a brand new web, a brand new decentralized infrastructure for not just communications, but for storage, combine it, and then launch it in not just one operating system, ClearOS server, but two, ClearOS Mobile. And ClearOS Mobile is basically an operating system that's built off of Android 10, but it does not, it's a full fork of Android, and it does not tie back to Google in any way, okay? So the actual operating system, is going to be solid from a security standpoint of the best tested technology that's out there. And by the way, FreeBSD is the software license that Apple uses, because Apple also uses open source technology for its operating system, but it doesn't give it back to the world. Okay, so think about it. We basically fork the #1 used operating system in the world, Android, which has almost twice as many users of the Apple operating system. Okay, almost twice as many apps, but I'd say some of them are not the same quality. And then we don't tie back to Google. So when people get the phone, there's a nuance that they have to go through, where they actually have to go and allow Google to operate on the phone. Otherwise, it ships where Google won't even operate. Okay, there's a reason why Google is in massive trade lawsuits, primarily because of what they've done to lock down this operating system. And the net is, we basically provide security at the GPS layer that's not in other systems. We provide, if people want to run apps, they can run almost any app in the world. So I'm going to just stroke up here. You can see these are all the Google apps. You can see these are all just general other apps that you can just download and test. And you notice some of them have different icons. So I can literally come in and I can change the way they look and feel. So if you want to feel like you're actually on an iPhone, I'm actually going to hide that. You can come in and say, I want to feel and look like I'm in my other world that I'm comfortable with. So now all these apps that had a different look and feel basically start feeling more like what you would experience on an Apple phone. And then I'm going to jump back over to a different thing real fast. So you kind of see, so this is ClearOS Mobile, and it's an operating system that does some new unique things where all of these things are basically new. So how the homepage works, the apps, widgets, search, like I can just search by just stroking down, and I can just search, all of my apps, all of my contacts, and online at the same time with one click, right? If you go left, you can actually tie to any kind of news feeds, and these can be news feeds that you define that you want in, but they're custom to you. One of the things we're working on next is basically ClearID, which basically will authenticate you based upon the fingerprint scanner on your phone into all of your websites or your applications in real time without you needing to use passwords. You just use your ClearPhone to be able to get into it. The ClearPhone, and from a security standpoint, this is one of the biggest things. So when I come down, and you got to remember, I'm showing you this is a production phone here. So, so you can see here, I've got, for whatever reason, I've got a couple things. So this meeting in progress, I can't get rid of, but you can see ClearLife is connected. You can see ClearGM. This ClearGM protection, it should be running, and it runs as an actual system. So if I were to clear it, so to speak. So you can see I've still got, oops, oh, I didn't want to get rid of that one. There you go. So you can still see I've got system processes that basically run. ClearGM runs at the phone layer, at the operating system, to basically block and protect elements. You can actually see here, it's actually not running for whatever reason. So it's a policy manager. So ClearGM literally blocks the whole internet. So right now I'm actually online and not protected. So if I had WhatsApp installed and someone sent me a virus and I clicked on it, it could actually, they could turn on my camera remotely and basically listen to conversations remotely without me knowing. The ClearGM technology basically stops that.
Yeah.
So as well as for a parent, it's like, so if I'm going to come into the Clear app, so I'm going to come into ClearLife, and it's going to ask for my Astra private key. So if someone grabs a phone, they can't just get in, but that de-encrypts it. So I can see a family member, and let's say I want to jump into Brock here. I can see his different devices. So I can see his, if he had one here. I can set up a device. I can allow him to use Google. I can see his different places that he goes online, or I can basically stop certain apps or certain places that he would actually go online somewhere. But you can basically, go ahead.
So basically it functions like a sort of net nanny. So you're able to set perimeters for family members and that sort of thing for children.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the biggest reasons why folks, sorry, I just pushed the wrong button. But that's one of the biggest reasons why when we look at the #1 usage of technology, being pornography, as a parent, again, I'm not saying that intimacy is bad, but intimacy in the wrong perspective, for instance, Thailand or Indonesia, they have massive problems within their culture because the individual's perception of sex is wrong. It's just been perverted. And again, I'm not saying that connection is bad or intimacy is bad, but the way that it's being perverted is literally hurting mankind and abusing relationships.
Yes.
And if we can, and I'm not saying that, everyone should be blocked everywhere. That's not, we're not the net nanny police, so to speak, which is another great Australian company, by the way. Give that plug out before they were bought by a company named Content Watch here in Utah, by the way. But the point that I'm driving at is it's a matter of being able to have choice. Right now, do parents really have choice for their family members to say, my 13-year-old kid, I really want them online to gain the knowledge and the power of the internet. But at the same time, I don't want them watching, 3 doggies and a dude do this with a horse. I mean, I won't get specific, but you can understand the stuff that we're talking about. It's getting really weird out there. And that perception, the younger that it's introduced, you can prove that, for instance, there's a gentleman, Mark Castleman wrote a book called Pornography, the Drug of the New Millennium. You can prove that pornography and the connection and addiction side to it is just as addictive to other things as heroin or other drugs. And a parent, a mother, a father would not put crack cocaine on their kitchen counter. But these devices are just as addictive, maybe from just Instagram or a game or other things, as crack cocaine. So imagine connecting all that stuff together, and all this is doing for a parent, or even for imagine it's not just a parent and a child. So a parent, and I don't know if you know this, but you can actually, when you're setting these up, you can actually take the phone, master private key, so the 12 words, you set it up once, and then you take a child and you basically synchronize that child with that parent. And the master private key creates a derived key so the child doesn't need 12 words. The parent can manage the apps, the sites, and the data and passwords eventually on where they actually go and what they do. And my point is that's not just a parent and child relationship, but it could be an employer, an employee, or it could be a citizen and a country, or a country and a citizen. Now, granted, that's not something that we want to enable, but if you get into other parts of the world, that's just how the society works. In China, the government is going to have a citizen that they're going to have encryption keys. That's
many countries, including, Bahrain and, Saudi Arabia, a lot of countries.
Right. As a matter of fact, one of those countries you just mentioned, I won't be specific, we're currently working on 90,000 cell phones a month. Okay. And literally where they basically, you go to the country and they give you a phone and they take your passport and that becomes your new identity. These things are reality. This isn't fictitious. This is very real. This is very in our faces. And either mankind gets on with technology tracking us and controlling us, or we find a better way. But I would also go out on a crazy limb and say, COVID is real. Maybe man actually created COVID. Like we're messing with stuff that we shouldn't be messing with cloning people, with messing with viruses. We've done this to ourselves. If COVID's real, then why is it about a financial reset and digital control? Because that's really what's going on. That's really what's happening. And if that's the case, why is it that all of the manufacturers, Microsoft, Alphabet, Apple, Amazon, there are some serious companies that have central control over all of our worlds. Every person on this call has a phone from either Microsoft from Google or from Apple. Microsoft jumped out of the world a long time ago. And anyways, different conversation. But I guess what I'm driving at is we really need to ask ourselves how the tech giants are involved with health and why. Why is it that Microsoft CEO, founder, Bill Gates, is pushing things around vaccinations? Why is it that Microsoft files a patent on a cryptocurrency that ties to DNA and other elements that has a crazy number? If you look at the number, it's even crazier. I mean, this is like a movie that we're living in the middle of. And there has to be choice in all of this, Paul. There's got to be a better way. So
absolutely. And that's another conversation, because we want to talk about the phone, but that's another conversation entirely. Apparently only the governments are referencing it as a vaccine. Other people are actually referencing it as an interface or a treatment. So that's a whole new, and I really want to make it about your phones because people are really super excited about those. So just, you mentioned about the countries as well. And so does the phone function in all countries? And from what I've told it, as long as it's operating on a GSM SIM card system?
Yeah, exactly. So the phone basically is an unlocked phone that works on bands and frequencies that are worldwide in all zones. So there's 4 main zones worldwide. And it's got full FCC certification and full GSMA certification. And it works on any of those carriers that are on that. So 4G, 5G, 3G, those are the same standards and bodies. So it works on that. So in Australia, you got Optus and Telstra and Vodafone. Those are the 3 main carriers, if I remember right. I met with them a long time ago. And you should literally, and correct me if I'm wrong, any of the folks that are on here, you should literally be able to take your SIM out of your current phone and put it in this Clear phone, and it should work. Not only that, but you can actually do 2 SIMs at the same time. So you can be on 2 of those networks at the same time. Now you need to pay attention, MMS messaging, SMS messaging, certain types of call quality, certain types of prioritization of G3, G4, G5. The provider may play games with you where they're going to provision you on higher frequencies or different bands, or say, you only can get onto a 4G band. But in the US, they play a lot of those games. Outside of the US, they don't play much of those games. So the simple answer is they should work worldwide. However, currently we're rolling out in Canada, Mexico, and the US. And it's beautiful to see such groundswell in Australia and even some pieces of South America and Europe. But the bottom line is the phone should work in the regions that you're in. And it's an opportunity for people to get the phone and then figure out, it's really easy. Just physically get the phone and then find the networks and plug it in and see if it works. If it does, you've got an opportunity to distribute it into your own ecosystems. And I'd say you'd be the first mover in those regions. So
Yeah, absolutely. And sorry, say that again, Michael.
No, I was just making sure I was answering your question.
Yeah, no, that's great. And yeah, there's people like Elle and David are doing some great and amazing work with getting the word out there as well. So can I just get clear as well on the encryption capability? So it's only encrypted handset to handset. So if you're calling someone else with a non-clear phone, is your end still secure?
So I'm going to try and log back into that same. Let's see if I can share again. And I'm just jumping on these new, Zoom's a technology has been around for a long time, but it's actually new to me, to be honest with you. So if I jump into this and I actually go to here. So let's say I look at this call, okay? I can actually see that this is a secure call, and I can actually connect with people that actually have non-clear phones that are running Signal.
Mm-hmm.
Signal is a protocol this protocol is very good, very open. It can be audited, it can be tracked. They've done a very good job of it. But what's unique is I can actually go to my contacts, and if I were to grab a contact within a clear phone, and let's say I just open this gentleman up and I want to edit him. Notice this little top thing here, this clear did.
Yes.
Well, this clear did it takes a public key from each of us. So let's say, Paul, you have a public key and I have a public key. And this is how cryptography works, by the way. You have a public key, I have a public key, and together we create this new decentralized ID, also known as a DID. So this clear DID basically is a unique number between you and I, or algorithm between you or I. So if I wanted to communicate with you under clear signal, I would communicate with you under our DID number. But if you don't have a clear phone, I would communicate with you. I shouldn't turn that off. I always do that. I would communicate with you under your phone number. So clear signal uses DIDs, whereas Signal uses phone numbers. So Signal, in my opinion, is a very good technology, and Clear Foundation's donated to the Signal Foundation for many years, and we really agree with what they're doing and where they're going. But what we've done is taken it a step further around decentralizing Signal to a point where you can literally obfuscate or remove the need for the phone number. Why? Because, and I hate to tell you this, but every single thing on the line is tracked. Everything. 100% is tracked. Like Edward Snowden basically talked about this PRISM thing where it comes in one side, but it goes out multiple sides. I'm sorry to say that's real. And I'm also sorry to say that technology was developed in a university right here in Utah, and then spun out in a commercial business right here in Utah, and funded by a local VC here in Utah, which I was in the same building as all this stuff. I was the same VC that funded them, funded us. The same VC that funded them started Novell. Ray Norda started Novell, that built all this file print and messaging technology, went on to create $1 billion VC fund called Canopy that literally funded all of this crazy technology that now the NSA, National Security Association, literally right here in Utah, still big buildings. You can go search it, search NSA Utah, and you'll be hard pressed to learn much about it because literally when planes fly over it, they track the numbers. It's crazy stuff.
Yes.
But it's this massive data center. In my opinion, it'll make Utah a target for other things, but literally a massive data center that copies every single piece of data that happens online. From a communication like this, that's why I don't use this as normally. We just don't communicate over Signal. But Signal's a good technology, or Zoom's a good technology too. But I guess my point is if you have a phone number that's communicating with another phone number, whether it's voice, video, data, text, recording, you name it, files, like with Signal, that data is still being copied, and it's still easy to understand that there's communication from here to here. Yeah, it was encrypted, but that data can be stored, meta tagged, and pulled back up in the future. This is a reality. This isn't hypothetical, but it can be tagged. And the reality is just like when you and I were born, Paul, if someone wanted something from you, they had to knock on your door with some type of subpoena or warrant and say, we've been given by the majesty or the crown or whatever the judges are there, rights to go and seize your property or investigate or do whatever, because you've done something wrong. And those freedoms are what, here in at least America, those freedoms are what a lot of people died for, is to be able to have God-given gifts of real abilities to have freedoms to assemble, to have freedoms of speech. And I would argue that people that are assembling and having freedom of speech, they're actually being shunned. They're being pushed out of the lights.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother conversation, but
being completely censored. And I'm just conscious of your time as well, Michael, and we've got some people in the community that want to ask some questions. There was one of there's actually two others really quickly before I open it up to the others in the group if they want to ask questions either by the chat or directly. The first one is, why choose an affiliate marketing model? Some people sort of think that it's like, maybe it's got a bit of a stigma about it. Like, I don't want to be involved in that side of things. It's like, why choose that model?
I actually felt the same way the first couple of times it was brought up. It was like the right way to drive awareness. If you're really focusing on decentralized systems and you don't want you changing the ad world, the only right way to do it is word of mouth. People telling people, friends telling friends. Yeah. And I really personally struggled with it because living here in Utah, there's a lot of MLMs that are here. And the first two times I said, just flat, no, we're not doing that. That just doesn't make any sense. We have worked so hard to keep this thing clean and pure. You can't taint it with something like that. But ultimately it really is the right way. Mouth to mouth, friend to friend, influencer to influencer, it really is the right way. And so what you have is you've got the storage business with ClearCenter, with decentralized storage for 10 years. And then the cellular business with ClearCellular. So it took us many years to get that built, but it was actually a lot easier than the prior stuff. You combine those two products together, decentralized ID with decentralized storage, and you sell and market it through ClearUnited through word of mouth. And really, the complexities of automating how all that works, so it can basically, and we believe that we're successful at any of the Clear companies, and there's a reason why it's called Clear Center. There's no center to it. We're successful if we do not need to run or operate this. So literally, we can be succession planned or removed. For instance, who created Bitcoin?
Satoshi, allegedly, an alias.
Yeah,
it's unknown.
And maybe he even from Australia too, but that's a different conversation. But the world says they don't know who created Bitcoin. Who's running Bitcoin, and can it be shut down? So my point is imagine a new ecosystem where you actually have real world physical stuff that are intended to be designed together and to work together, that the world can actually deploy and become a part of this new decentralized infrastructure, whether it's decentralized currencies, whether it's decentralized storage, whether it's decentralized identity. And then there's so many other decentralization. For instance, decentralized porn. Imagine cutting out the people that are in the middle of it, making the money, pushing, controlling. Imagine if you give that back to the individuals. Do you think that whole industry would change? Do you think that people that created content and shared it with their friends in a digital, remember, we're connecting the physical and digital world. So these things actually do come together, and they are coming together if we're being honest about it. But if they can come together in a natural way where the individual builds their own reputation from who they are online, and I'm not saying we build this new world for decentralized porn. That's not it. As a matter of fact, it would be the opposite. It would be you build this for people that are actually doing things that are virtuous and positive for all of mankind, and they get a reputation that's positive from that. And the higher reputation score you have, the more valuable your online identity is. And
that's true. But so I was just going to interrupt you there, Michael, and say that it sounds dangerously around walking around the edges of what places that are being implemented, including where it started previously in China with things like social credit systems, though.
Yeah, but imagine if you own the credit. Imagine if the individual. So think about it this way. In America, we have the same thing that China's already implementing. We've already implemented. It's called Experian and Equifax and TransUnion. Yeah, that's right. And Equifax, the largest credit organization in the United States of America, has all 300 million people in it, tracking all of us from where you've lived to what you own to how you pay your bills, and you get a credit score, FICO score, right?
Yep.
And then they're compromised. All of their data is stolen by who? China. And can the individuals that have been profiled and all their identity stolen, do they have any recourse? No. The United States of America indemnifies Equifax from any kind of liability. Now you tell me what kind of accountable centralized system that is. But what I'm driving at is a system where the individual owns their own encryption keys like this.
Yeah.
They're the ones that actually own their identity. And not only that, they can actually do one up on the Equifaxes of the world. They can log into all their systems. I'm going to show you a slide that's just massive. So instead of getting a phone where you're plugging in your Apple information, your Google information, you actually get data. And then you basically can start tracking different things about you, your logins, your cards, your identity, your health, your et cetera. But imagine in your logins, it'll actually log you into systems like banks and taxes and search engines. Imagine the ability to go into your Google search engine and actually pull out everything that you search, every place that you go, and you actually index all of this data as though it were you. Now, can Equifax do that? No. Can Google do that? No. Can Facebook do that? No. But if you can do it, then do you think advertisers are actually going to pay you to literally buy something from them? Yeah, it builds this trust. It's like, I want to buy a new car. Toyota's willing to pay me $50 in real time, and it's instantaneous, and they can't take it back, and there's no games. That's powerful. Instead of them, Toyota, paying Facebook to then get remarketed onto a Google ad or vice versa.
Yeah.
Then get in front of you.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but if I'm Toyota, I'd pay the individual over paying the Facebooks of the world. Does that make sense to you, Paul?
Absolutely. It does make sense. And I'm just conscious of time as well. There's a lot of some other people who want to ask questions. I was just going to ask you about the, in relation to the SARS rating as well. So someone asked about the SARS rating on the phones as far as,
it's got full FCC certification, and they went through this dingy process. It was the first time I ever went through it. They basically go and measure in these, and it's actually pretty cool and in depth. But I think that frequencies, radiation, mankind has touched what we should know about it and how we can leverage it and use it. First off, I'd say for the people asking that question, it's going to give you cancer, it's going to kill you, all these different things. No, not really. It'll provide cellular degradation because it is a frequency. The question is it a positive frequency that's actually going to help you or hurt you? A lot of people on this call actually believe in frequency, but they do everything they can to have positive frequency around them. Now you tell me, what does frequency come from? It comes from crystals. Where do the crystals come from? How do these phones actually operate? They operate off of crystals, off of frequencies. So if you can actually adjust the frequencies to help the body and communicate, what did you just create? Imagine that. So today we're basically taking two different widgets, and I'm just going to call this a widget, okay? Let's say that this creates a frequency, and this creates a frequency. Let's say the basis of whoever asked you that question, this has in many cases proven to actually cause cancer. Or some people keep it in their bra. It causes cancer. Or my point is please treat it like it's something that is not positive for your life, because it hasn't been proven to do it. And a clear phone is no better than an Apple phone today when it comes to that. But I would underscore today, because we do care about frequencies. As a matter of fact, we talked about clear and truth and the future. It's physics. It's physics. And what are physics? They're frequencies. Just like I'm using my vocal cords to make a tone to come through the computer, to go through a wire. And many folks maybe are using a cell connection. We're all using frequencies to actually communicate.
Yes.
Just as we're doing it physically with the voice, you can also do it with light. You can do it with music. And these frequencies are very real and they're very powerful, and we have touched very small amounts of it. But the phones themselves, from a safety standpoint, we cannot make any claim that they're any more safe than any other cell phone. And I would actually say that every cell phone and other things around us in society, they are toxins that hurt our bodies. But can we clean it and separate from these toxins is a question. And can we do it organizing our health in the middle of it, and then allowing the user to actually become the individual that they are? Because we're not all treated the same. We don't all think the same. We don't operate the same. We don't heal the same way. You know, some of us learn different ways. Some of us gain weight different ways. Some of us lose weight different ways. Anyways, I'll stop blabbing, but
no, that's great. Can we just touch, and I'll just open up to anyone else that's on this call at the moment that's live, if they have any questions after this, but I just wanted to like speak into like what's possible as far as, you know, the revenue model and, you know, the earning capacity and that sort of thing for people. I know we've had a lot of people come on board with the community and that sort of thing, and super excited about, I didn't even know the stats of like what, you know, mobile percentage of ownership, et cetera, in the world. And it certainly opens up the conversation for what's possible. So you basically have a handset model, which people or anyone that's listening to this, please talk to the person that's referred you to, had the conversation with you about this. So there's a handset model. You basically have 3 different models from what I've been able to read, and then you have a subscription.
yeah, so there's 3 different models. What we call the ClearPhone 220, 420, and 620. They have different benefits to them. The 220 is all around affordability. The 420 is basically the main competition in the phone markets today. You know, from a camera, a battery, a screen, feature functions, all that stuff. And then the 620 is basically the same thing as the 420, but it's got higher capacity on storage space, RAM, ROM, as well as the screen size is the largest phone in the world at 7.12 inches. And for some folks on the call, that might sound really big, but for me, once I go to that size, it's like, I don't want to go back to another smaller phone. So I know there's a couple, Elle's got one. So that's kind of the size of that puppy. So that's how it compares to her hand.
Yeah.
But so those are the phones. There's storage in the future and community in the future, and it basically breaks down by this. So you've got different phases. We're currently in this first phase here. So currently working on these elements. As far as a revenue model, a simple sales transaction. Let's say you buy the phone and services that go with it. So voice, data, text, and actually as well as physician, dermatologist, and therapist in Q2 for literally $100 a month for this particular phone. So this phone here, the 420. So that in the US, you'd get the cell service with that. So voice, data, text, unlimited, all of it basically for that. And then $40 of that or 40% of that, we literally give back to what we call circles. And so circles of influences that would tie to, I'll kind of pull this up. Imagine, if you will, a revenue structure where we pay 33% in circles and then 7% in a pool. So 40% of all revenues basically gets paid out to people telling other people about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and then we focus on one person telling 3 people, then they become an influencer. And if those 3 people basically have a phone and they're a member, there's a private membership from a private membership association, which then also basically gives us the ability to provide coaching services and some other beautiful things. Then they get a drop. And when you get a drop every month, we divide that drop up and you basically get a part of that 7% of total revenue. So it's a pretty big deal. We believe that, and I don't come from the MLM world, don't have a lot of history in it. In many ways, we're just straight up stupid to it, but we do listen and we do care about creating something that gives back to the world. And we're not building this in the middle just to get rich. As a matter of fact, with the structure of this, as people bring other people in, one thing that's unique is it's important for people to be accountable to the other people and add value in their world. And this may create a lot of questions or have other issues, but we really believe that the individual should be accountable to one another. It's kind of like down in Utah or in the United States, if you get in a car accident, you can sue people. And in California, it's notorious. But in New Zealand, you get in a car accident, you can't sue anybody. I don't know how it is in Australia, but literally think about that paradigm and everything kind of changes from that. So imagine a world where people are accountable to one another. They think about driving a little bit safer. They slow down. They take the curves a little. Because if you run over people, you kill. I mean, you just can't. There's some things you can't pay for in life. Yeah. And relationships are some of those. And so imagine in an ecosystem where it's not just who's over you, because this world is not to have people over us. Yes, someone may introduce something to you, but that doesn't mean they're over you. You choose to be connected to them. You choose that. And so In this ecosystem, an individual can choose one time to self-select and not be connected to somebody. That doesn't mean the rest of everybody that's underneath them goes with them. But we always have choice. And that was the one thing for us, if we were going to get into the MLM world, that was the one thing that just had to change, was you don't have people that are over you that are not adding value in your world.
Yeah.
So what it does is it drives an accountability to all of us, to one another. It puts skin in the game for all of us, not just who got in first, but who's going to care about those that are around them. And I look at Ella, I mean, she's dedicated her life to driving awareness and to caring and to literally, I mean, think about it. She was like, we got to get these phones, but the shipping is so expensive. That's just ridiculous. I'll raise my hand and I'll say that you can ship them all to me, and then I'll figure out logistics from there. I mean, my point is it's that kind of leadership and caring and accountability to others that let others want to be connected to her. So that's one thing that's unique and different about this ecosystem. Any other questions or thoughts?
Yeah, there's one other question, and we're sort of just about out of time as well, Michael. So if we can go back to the surveillance aspect of it, Chloe's asked the questions. What about, and it's pretty much a global, it's a global narrative and directive at the moment, but what about the track and trace systems for QR codes in shops and cafes? And, I imagine you have different versions of what people call the COVID safe app. We have the COVID safe app in Australia. The phones have automatic updates that already include downloading the, unbeknownst to people, and downloading those capabilities, so they're automatically getting their updates anyway.
And
speaking to that,
that's what's beautiful about ClearOS Mobile. ClearOS Mobile is an operating system that is totally separate from Google and Apple today. So Google and Apple will literally continue to basically, so this is kind of a slide on ClearOS Mobile. I'm going to grab one other. So this is actually a marketplace for ClearOS Mobile that is unique and different from the Apple place, the Apple Store, the Google Play Store. But imagine you can go and snag all the different apps that you want, but you actually aren't profiled as you snag them. Yes, you can go and download like a Facebook that'll actually listen to everything about you and literally do certain things. And if you're going to download these apps and then you're going to give them the rights and privileges to track you and trace you and see where you're at from a GPS standpoint, or see where you're at from a, there's so many tracers. People don't even understand the tracers. I mean, just to have access to your contacts is crazy.
Yes.
But the point that I'm driving at is you can still give permissions, but with this system, it's not by default. With this system, you can actually select, I want Facebook to only actually see my GPS location while I'm using Facebook, which most people just literally leave it on all the time. But imagine like Google Apps or Google Maps. So Google Maps today is tracking everyone where they go. It's crazy. It's actually really cool how it works, but the goal is to put that back into the individual's hands. But imagine if you could just only have Google Apps trace you when you're actually using it. And that's what the ClearPhone enables people to do. Is it going to solve all the security and privacy issues? Not today. It's not today. And to set those expectations are wrong. But it is independent of the system today. And what's important is by using this phone, you're actually helping to support the future of independent mankind united together. Not within countries, not within races or skin color, but united together in this digital world, we can make a difference. As Phil Lane says, many hearts, many minds in one body, united together. And that's really what this is all about.
Yeah, and that's very much what's needed as well. And thank you for being so generous with your time. Big shout out again to Ellie and to Dave for their leadership in Australia as well. Please, I'll post a link in here for our network for Messages for the Underground. And also please be in the conversation for anyone that had introduced you to this and have them get you onboarded and sorted and educated and up to speed as soon as possible. Michael, thank you for what you're doing. It's a very brave and courageous project. It's super exciting to see you guys fulfilling on it, and much love and good luck with everything that you're doing. We hope to have some more ongoing conversations as we proceed with the rollout.
That sounds great. And I apologize if I was clunky and kind of how I was getting used to things, but it's been nice to meet you, Paul. And we look forward to a future and hopefully many more conversations. So good questions.
Absolutely.
And maybe what you do is you just get a collection of more questions and we connect up again and go through them. So.
Sounds fantastic.
Okay.
Thank you for everyone for joining us on this call and for listening this afterwards as well. Much appreciated.
Thanks for getting this organized. Appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you for listening to another message from the underground. Want to know more? Head over to Facebook and search for our private Facebook group, Messages from the Underground, or visit www.messagesfromtheunderground.org. To connect with Paul Seils, please visit paulseils.com. Stay human, protect the planet, raise the consciousness.